So it's not a simple situation of saying we need good governance, then we're going to look for good people. Everything can happen. It needs to happen in tandem. First of all, we have to prioritize on our issues. Let me give an example of how the figures that she just pointed out in terms of the funds that have come in, loans from China over the past 12 years. Combined, you're looking at about 500 billion. May I remind her that France alone is taking over 500 billion a year, not 12 years. African Union has estimated that in order to completely build out the African infrastructure, we are going to need about $100 billion a year for the next 10 years. If that were to be available, that's only 2 years takings from France. So let's be realistic. It's not just China. Our problems are to do with the colonizers, and China is just becoming yet another colonizer. We must look at our problems from a global point of view and make sure that we have the right people qualified to do the job. I cannot ever emphasize enough that the capacity Africa needs is in the diaspora. Let's make no mistake about that.
You are perfectly right about that. You are very correct. You are very correct about that. But let me tell you something about France, which, of course, it won't surprise you. I had a guest who was supposed to join us in this broadcast, but because of where he works, he was instructed if this conversation would have anything to do with France, we will not allow you to participate in the discussion. And so he had to bow out. But the French lobby is very, very strong. If anybody thinks that the French are giving up on Africa anytime soon, as they want the rest of us to believe, that is a lie. It is not going to happen anytime soon. But I'm going to ask you, between the French and the Chinese, who are our lesser enemies? Madam Ambassador, both of you can take the question.
Well, to be honest with you, I think it is my humble opinion that if you were to talk about France and China as roots of a tree, the roots of France are so embedded, this tree is going to be impossible to shake. Whereas the roots of China, we can shake them. China hasn't been as embedded in Africa, and their roots are not as deep-rooted as the French roots. So I think there is a possibility, good possibility, that we can continue to negotiate with China and make sure that they do the right thing. France, we also have the chance to negotiate with France because President Macron is a young man, he is progressive. I think we have a better chance of seeing some movement with Macron in power. We don't know who else is going to come behind him. But so what's needed really is for us to really just stand up and have our leadership look France and China in the face to say, what you are doing is wrong and you need to stop. We will not tolerate it anymore. So we need to stand up and just push back because we are the victims and they are the perpetrators. Ours is an easy fight because we are coming from the point of righteousness. They are the bad guys and we need to stop them. Like I often say, we can no longer allow them to punch us and we give another kick. We can no longer allow them to punch us and then we have to apologize for them punching us. No, they are the perpetrators. We must hold them accountable, and that can only happen when we are awoken and we are no longer afraid of them because they are just as equal to us as we are to them. We need to have a critical mass that is awoken, that is ready to say, enough is enough. France, you can no longer continue to colonize us. The rest of the colonizers, we know what you have been doing to us, but we must be strong enough and fearless enough to push back and tell them enough is enough.
What is Megan's take on this? Do you think the French or the Chinese are lesser enemies in Africa?
Well, I think Queen Arikada has just said it all, truly and honestly. The reason everything is so focused on China right now is purely because of the coronavirus, this COVID-19. But the French, the roots are very, 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 very deep there. And when we talk about the continuation of the colonization pact, part of that limits your military alliance to France. So even if you wanted to fight back, you will align with who? So as I said, we need unity, and with unity, we can push France out. As far as China is concerned, China are silent assassins. They start with one, the next thing you know, there's 10 million of them. What this COVID-19 has brought awareness to that. Now, do we need to be fighting two evils, or we can get one that's easy to get rid of now, which is going to be China, so we can focus on getting France out of Africa? It makes no sense. Countries in Africa speak French. You're not from France. You're not French. We need African dialects, African language, African money in Africa. So that $500 billion, and that is, as she said, yearly. How ridiculous that goes to France. And the only reason France continues to do what it does is because it will collapse without that money. So France is the devil. And
France is the devil. I think you are in agreement there with Ambassador Arikana that France is the biggest devil here.
But with unity, we can deal with it. With unity, we can absolutely get rid of it. If the entire nation stands out, who are they going to come and assassinate? Nobody's coming to assassinate anybody if all of Africa stands together and says, try it. They won't try.
Well, to be honest with you, I would say a good significant percentage of the African population is going through some serious humanitarian issues. Right next door in DR, I've seen horrific videos of what is going on. You look at the Sahel nations. A lot of carnage, a lot of people getting killed. In a nutshell, the continent is under siege. And when you look at it and say, where do we begin to address these issues? Like I said, each country has different challenges, but in a nutshell, when it's all said and done, make no mistake about it, the continent is under siege. And what needs to be done is for us to look at Africa from a global continental point of view. And when it's all said and done, the majority of the countries that are having issues, they are former French colonies. So let's look and say, where is the root cause of these issues? And that's really what we need to talk about. And that's what we were talking about earlier, to say Cameroon alone is not going to be able to fight France. Individual countries cannot fight France. Foremost, I must step out and unite with my brothers and sisters, because united, we could deal with the situation in Cameroon if we are united. Cameroon alone is not going to be able to push back against France. My brother, you know that as much as I do.
The problem of Cameroon, yes, is partly the French, but it is more than that, considering that the French really don't have anything to do with the relationship between Ambazonia and French Cameroon. I think the problem that is in Cameroon is the inability of those who run the country to listen to the people like we have in every other country. So it has resulted to where we are today, a conflict that has gone on for 4 years. And when you talk about approaching this from the African angle, we don't have an African angle. The AU does nothing. The international community, they do nothing either. When they try, I would say they try, but Africans, the AU does absolutely nothing. The AU looks like a lobby for these individual leaders. That is the African problem. If the AU was serious, they would have waded into what is going on in Cameroon to say, hey, you can't keep killing the people, burning their settlements, driving them into the bushes, sending them into refugee camps. The African Union has not done so.
Again, your point is well taken. The issues of Africa, you would hope that the AU as a continental body, could have some say. The problem with AU is that it does not have sovereignty. The African Union Charter clearly states that the African Union cannot interfere with the affairs of the state. So they can only come in as negotiators. They can try and coerce the leadership, but AU does not have sovereignty. and does not have the right to dictate what a nation can do. Remember, the membership membership to the African Union is voluntary. A leader can just decide, I no longer want to be part of the AU, and they can pull out, and then there's nothing you can do. Now they're completely on their own with no ability of engaging them in any conversation in any way, shape, or form. So we must understand also how the AU was set up. What really needs to happen, conversations need to come in where the AU can also have sovereignty. AU must be given more powers. We have a lot of good organs that should be ratified in the African Union Parliament. For example, the African Court, the African Court. We need to have those organs to be ratified so they can begin to play their role. But to date, they have not yet been ratified. What is delaying the process, I do not know. But I can tell you one thing. If we were to fight from the continental level, the battle would be a lot easier. But as long as we're fighting, it's like a hand fighting with one finger instead of fighting with the whole fist. That is where our problems lie. That's why I keep saying the Berlin Conference is alive and well today.